All right, I thought I'd share a little bit about my rides this weekend. So the first ride was on Saturday, and that was the Hügel ride, Tour das Hügel. It's a 111 mile, 11,000 feet of climbing. And it'd be my first year to do it. I've heard about it over the years, but it wasn't that well organized. I think it's kind of still loosely organized, but a lot more people know about it now, I think, anyway. Because there was 300 or 400 people there at the start of it on Saturday morning. And we've known about it for a long time now. I'm in shape this year, so I decided I was going to do it. And I told myself, well, if the weather's not good, I'm not going to do it because it can be kind of dangerous because you're just taking up and down the steepest hills in Austin. But the weather was like glorious. It was awesome. And I was kind of feeling like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. But I wasn't really, really excited about it because I'd really done my huge effort in my 1,300-mile ride from Austin to Florida at the beginning of October. And so about a month later, we've got the Hugel ride, and I'd never climbed that many feet before in one day, and I don't consider myself a really great climber. But, I was going to do it, had a lot of friends doing it, and it was exciting to be able to do stuff with them. And I think that some of those folks that were doing it, they haven't been training as much as I have this year, and they're ready to go. So it kind of got me excited to go as well. Something else happened prior to Saturday, though. On Friday, I started seeing the weather reports, and the weather reports were saying a 20 mile an hour wind from north to south. And anytime there's a massive wind, kind of north to south or south to north, I think, oh, I could ride my bike from Austin to Dallas or the other way around. So I've done that trip 3 times so far this year. The first time was the most glorious because I had the perfect tailwind for the whole thing. Also, it was my first time, so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have any mechanicals. My speed was like insane, and I have not been able to match that since. The wind hasn't been right. Mechanicals, whatever. And I thought, man, this would be too bad I'm doing Hugel on Saturday, right? Tough that this conditions is showing up on the same weekend. And then I just started thinking about it more, and yeah, it's hard. So what, does that mean you can't do it? No, that doesn't mean you can't do it. The question is, will you do it? And I also thought about, just you don't get these kind of winds very often. They're only going to happen in the spring and the fall generally, and it has to be just the right direction. And honestly, if it's around 15 to 20 mile an hour, that is great conditions. I started to really think about possibly doing it, and I think it was on Friday night. I thought, oh man, I wonder if anyone will do this with me if I choose to do this thing that is so crazy. And I put a message on my post on the Strava group and did not hear any responses, probably because people didn't think I was serious, or they were like, well, he's a nutcase anyway. Why would we do that? Why do you ask us these stupid questions? So I didn't think I'd get anybody to take me on it. It sure would be a lot more fun with somebody else with you. Although in hindsight, after having done the ride on Sunday, unless you're both, or whoever's going, right, unless you're at the same level, it could have been more difficult. and I wasn't at my physical limit, but I was at my limit for what I needed to get done and the time it had to be done for Sunday. So Hugel was great. I actually got to ride with a lot of different friends that I have at different points in the ride, which is awesome. Randomly met somebody I haven't seen in years on the ride, Scott McCorder. So it's good to see him again. Hopefully I get to ride out there with him. Met somebody else on the ride who I've had a chance to talk with after that, and some of the folks that I've been doing a lot of rides with. So, and we're all, together at different points in the ride because the groups will separate based upon how they're feeling. Hey, people feeling great, they should move on. And people are struggling, just take it at your own pace. But it was great seeing a lot of folks out there. and just all the people, right? And then during the ride, randomly getting past or passing people that you know and getting to say hi. So that was awesome. And, everyone's in there, whether they did the whole thing or half, it was going to be a huge effort. And I don't know, just seeing people put so much effort into something like that. There's just so much energy in an event like that, and you see everyone else around it. It really is inspiring. So I guess it was the halfway point of the 111 miles when you're about 40 miles in, and you get back to where you originally started before you went on the other section, and stop, refuel with water, and got back on the bike, and for no reason, the back brake was gripping, and it was like squeaking. So for 70 miles after that, I had this horrible squeaking and creaking and noises, and there was no way to get around it. I was just hoping it wasn't going to fall apart on me. I didn't know. I didn't think it was a spoke. I thought it was the brake, and it was. But just had to keep on riding. And then I got a flat. I'm the only person that I know that I can think of, especially for the people that were riding with or around me, who got a flat. And so hopefully it was at the top of City Park, not at the bottom of City Park. So that was good. I had a place to pull over. It was flat. And thanks to Luis for pulling over with me, helping me fix that. Never found anything, just that it wasn't holding there. Put a new tube in, and it held. It was perfect. So we finished the rest of the ride. By the end, there was maybe a small group of 3 of us that finished at our time. We might have been ahead, we might have been behind other people, but the 3 of us had finished together. So that was awesome. High fives, couple of pictures, and then I had to make up my mind. So about halfway through that ride, and all those things were happening, I was like, man, things just aren't lining up. It doesn't feel like it was meant to be to go on this ride on Sunday, the next day. But by the end, I felt towards the end of almost any ride, I feel a little surge of energy, and of course, completing it, you feel pretty good. But I had to get the back brake fixed, and we're done at 4:30. Bike shop closes at 5. I got there just enough time for them to mess around with the brakes, and it was fixed temporarily. I just didn't know if it would stay fixed for the next day. And I really thought, okay, I think I can do this. Then went home, had to completely shower the bike, clean it off. I had to clean up. I had to wash everything. I had to refill all my sugar water bottles and get all my nutrition set out for the next day. And on top of that, I don't have a car myself. So I knew that my plan was to, because I started looking at this on Friday, I was going to have to go to the airport, because it was the only thing where you could rent a car at 7 o'clock at night. And I would pick up, so I had to take a lift, go to the airport, get a rental car, bring it back here downtown, park it in the garage, get everything set and ready for the next morning. So I did all that, and of course, all that stuff takes longer than you expect. I was in bed about 9:30 or something like that, and my goal was to get up early, drive to Dallas, drop off the car, and ride back. And ideally, I wanted to be on the bike by 7. And I was thinking at the time I would make much better time than I did. I did not think it was going to take me 13 hours to get back. And that's what it took me to get from Dallas back to the condo here in Austin. And so I thought, okay, I'll leave at 7. I'll be back in Austin by 4 or 5, because maybe 5. Because I didn't want to be out when it got dark, because I knew it was just going to get colder and colder, and it's just safer when it's light out. I'd rather ride in the dark in the morning than a dark at night. So, but I woke up Sunday morning and I had an issue. It looked like my front tire had lost some air. And I run tubes, and those tubes are never more than a 1 pound off by the morning. And it had lost, it was down to 45 from 65. So I was like, oh my God. So, of course, in the morning, I figured I need to go ahead and take care of this now versus on the road someplace. So I I went ahead and switched out the new tube in the morning, so that delayed my start getting out of Austin. And it just took longer to turn in the car, gas up the car, get everything ready, and finally got all that set up, dropped off the car at Dallas Love Airport, and I was on the bike right at 8:30. And I was a little bit north of downtown, right? Usually I would leave or arrive in downtown Dallas. So I was about 5 miles north, so I had to, add that extra time in there that I didn't really account for. And the wind in downtown Dallas was just like swirling everywhere. Like at times I was like, what? I don't understand. The leaves are blowing in my face and I'm heading south. It didn't make any sense at all. So finally, further south, way out of downtown, it started to make a little bit more sense with the direction of the leaves that were blowing. But something else is the wind was out of the, I think I may have mentioned this, I don't know, wind was out of the northwest, and Dallas to Austin is to the southwest. And it was that much of a change that most of my ride was across tailwind, not a tailwind. I had some straight up tailwind, but there aren't that many sections in that entire route that actually go from the from the northwest to the southeast. So most of it it was like an X, right? And there was some sections where I was a straight up crosswind, and this is 18 to 20 mile crosswind. And those happened at the worst possible spots because the road was in the worst condition when I did those. So there's two sections, Highway 77 from Italy, Texas to Hillsboro, and then there was another stretch that wasn't quite as long, but it was much hillier, and the road was the chip seal was just ridiculous. It's called Moonlight Lane. And it's a route you can take to try to kind of get on the outskirts of Waco. This is a heads up for anyone ever wanting to do this. Don't ever take your bicycle on that route. It is the worst chip seal I have ever ridden on. And when you're tired and you've got at least 100 miles more to go, and there was massive, just a horrible crosswind, just a worst place to be. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly the best route, especially going south through Waco. I have some ideas of what I want to do next time, but that's just a heads up for anybody. Avoid the Moonlight route. That's part of the route that you saw that I did. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to try to break my fastest 100-mile ride. And I have a really good time for 100 miles, and that was with 2 stops. So the way that I guess Strava keeps track of this is it includes your stop time for your records. And I had 2 stops. Each of them were 10 minutes each, and my 100-mile time was like 4 hours and 16 minutes. And I thought, okay, if I can match the speed and just do 1 stop, I could beat that time, and maybe I can get under sub 4 hours. And so I decided I mapped it a little bit different this time, and instead of 2 stops within with 100-mile section, I just made it a single stop during there, thinking I might be able to make a difference. And no, not even close. I averaged 19.4 for the whole ride, and I've averaged 23.5 for my fastest time. So the wind makes a huge difference. And then, of course, the other factor was me doing Hügel the day before. I think my best normalized power for my Dallas rides was 202 watts for 12 hours or 10 hours or something like that on the bike. And I averaged 169 this time. So what is that? 85% of the power. I'm really surprised I had that much power because it had to be the sugar water that I was bringing in from my nutrition. Plus, I was trying to eat other stuff too, and I was starving by the time I got into Austin. Oh my gosh, my stomach was grumbling, and I was still trying to eat as much as I could on the bike. So at least I didn't have any stomach issues, which I don't normally, but sometimes I get acid reflux. And I haven't quite figured out what that is yet. And I don't know if it's the maltic acid, I think that's what it's called, in the element that I take, or if it was just an excess of sugar water, or the last time I had the issue with that was on the trip from Austin to Orlando, and it might have been that the sugar water went bad because we could not keep it super cold the whole time, and I had 5 gallons of it. But once I got the heartburn, I just couldn't get rid of it, so I just threw out all that sugar water on that ride. So now I'm kind of easing back into it. So I don't think it's sugar water itself, but maybe is it fresh sugar water? So, but yeah, there was some adventures on the ride. Polk Avenue out of downtown. A little bit south of downtown Dallas. It just goes straight north-south, and it ends up changing its name a couple of times. And then you take it into this neighborhood, and then as you're heading south, there's a left turn in the neighborhood, and you go a little bit longer, and you pop out on I-35. It is really an excellent road to go in and out of Dallas, straight north and south, and avoid most of the highway stuff. But as I was going through that neighborhood, there was a group of dudes that were, they were getting ready for their, I guess Sunday morning ride, and I passed them. So I left at 8:30. So I don't know, passed them 9:30 or something like that, maybe even 10. I can't remember. And I said hi as I passed them. They were just kind of getting out of their driveways and everything, and I didn't know that they were going to go the same direction as me. I didn't know if they would be taking the I-35 access road to head south. So they did, and then I didn't realize it was a dick measuring Sunday, which it was evidently. So I was going at a speed that I could maintain. I had 190 more miles to go. I wasn't going to go balls to the wall just because other people wanted to go that fast. Now, if they'd gotten in front of me, I would have definitely drafted for a while. I would have taken advantage of that. But I was still, I guess, a little bit faster than the group. But I realized that they were following me and they were getting closer. And I was like, well, that's great. Maybe at some point they'll pass me and then I'll draft. And then I I noticed there was at least somebody behind me. I thought it was a whole group. But it turned out that, I don't know, maybe it was the only guy in the group that had an e-bike. And the rest of the group weren't in sight anymore. And it was just him behind me. And that dude sat behind me for like 4 or 5 miles just drafting on his e-bike. And then he timed his jump so that he could blow past me. And as he passed me, I said hi, but he didn't say anything to me. And he just kept on going. And I was looking at his pedaling style, even on an e-bike. I was like, that dude, there is no way he's going to make it much longer the way he's pedaling. And if he drafted on me that entire time, he's not going to make it much longer. And sure enough, that was the case. The very next exit, like a quarter mile up the road, that dude pulls off. So, hey, I hope he's really, really proud of his accomplishment. Let's see, I can't think of, the other notable thing was right around sunset. So it just took so much longer than I thought. I found myself in Belton on the access road to 35, going through Belton, heading south. And, there's some traffic on the access road in towns generally, but it was worse because there was a wreck on I-35. And so some of the cars had been diverted to the access road. But the problem is we were going through there, and it was a bad angle to begin with because it wasn't aligned with a tailwind. It was a more of a crosswind because we were heading directly into the sun. And this is at sunset. I mean, I could barely see anything. And there was not a shoulder. There was only 2 lanes of an access road in town, and I had to be in one of the lanes. And I was having difficulty seeing in front of me. And I know the cars behind me could probably barely see me. So I was just trying to, keep moving as fast as I can, and hoping that I get out of Belton as quickly as possible. And so finally made it out of there and then got on the access road. And I was fine for a little bit. But then came darkness real fast. And I had been running my tail light all day long, as I do all the time. And I always carry a spare tail light because it would just be suicide to not have a tail light out there. And I needed it because as soon as it got really dark, I had to turn the other tail light on, which is good I had one. And I also waited as long as I possibly could before I turned my headlamp on, because we're talking like it's not quite 6 o'clock yet, and it's really dark, and it's time for me to turn on the lights. The problem is I knew how far I was, and I knew I was somewhere between 3 and 3.5 hours from getting home. Turned out to be 3.5 hours. And my lights had lasted 3.5 hours before, but I have no idea how much longer they'll last than that. And I didn't want to get like 5 miles from home and then like, oh, no light. And then I'd be holding a flashlight in my mouth or something like that to go down the road. So I was on the access road, I-35, heading south from Belton all the way to really north Georgetown, where there's a loop that I get on and get off the highway. And normally during the day, there are at times a great shoulder to be on, and at times the shoulder is messed up, and at times there isn't a shoulder. But during the day, you can see that. So you can make those transitions. But there was a couple of factors that led me not to do that. One is, at night, I can only see so far with the light I have because I have it on low. So I'd have to react really fast. And with the tailwind, there are times when I'm doing 30 miles an hour. And if something changes quickly on the shoulder, it's too late. So I decided, for reasons of safety, to actually be in one of the lanes on the access road. And then also there's less chance of a puncture because there's less debris right where those wheels are running most of the time from the cars. And I just did not want to have to change a flat because it was already getting cold. And I knew just sitting around trying to change a flat in the dark is just, I don't want to deal with that. So that was real, kind of nerve-wracking for about 25 or 30 miles until I finally got into North Georgetown, and then took this loop that goes around Georgetown, which is better. There's less traffic, and there's a little bit of a shoulder. And then when you actually get in South Georgetown, heading straight south on some side roads that you go into Round Rock, there's definitely a really nice shoulder there. So I was happy to get to that point. And then it was just, fighting the cold and hoping that I don't get a flat and making sure that my light lasted. And I had to push hard enough that I wasn't going to take longer than 3.5 hours, but I couldn't push too hard because I didn't want to cramp up. Because I was at my limit at that point. And I could always go above it, but I can only do that so long. But I made it to the condo. I was starving and tired. I've actually felt worse before on a couple of days on my trip from Austin to Orlando. But this was definitely the most I've ever attempted to do in a 2-day period. But I'm extremely proud of it. Like I said, like a lot of people, the most difficult thing they'll do in the year, maybe even, is to attempt the Hügel ride on that Saturday. And I decided to throw in an extra 216 miles on the very next day. Definitely sore, need to massage the legs a little bit. I got some saddle sores, which is something that has really, surprisingly, that never happened to me on the Orlando trip. But we'll see how that feels sometime this week. One thing I've learned, if you're going to do a really long event or a series of long events back to back to back to back, do not sit idle for several days after that. You must get on a bike, even if it's an indoor bike, and use your legs some, because if you don't, and you try to get on a bike, a few days later, you were going to have issues, big issues. And then the recovery from that takes even longer. So movement is your friend. And, hopefully this, it's either going to scare people away, they're going to say you're crazy, I would never do that. And I hope that for other people, there's a bit of inspiration here. It's not a matter of, can you do it? And the question is, will you do it?